and welcome to another vlog. I read an article yesterday that said that Mattel, the toy company, has recently unveiled two new Barbies with disabilities, one in a wheelchair and one with a prosthetic arm. And when they designed the Barbies, they actually worked with a young girl with a disability. And I thought it was great to see that Mattel was being inclusive like that and actually went to those lengths to make their toy line more inclusive because there's not many toy companies that are willing to do that, and I really think that there should be. Anyway, this week's theme is bipolar disorder. And the reason I chose to talk about this today is because February is Psychology Month. Now, the main purpose of Psychology Month is for psychologists to talk a little bit about their role and what they do. But since I'm not a psychologist, I thought this would be a good time to talk a little bit about bipolar disorder and other mental illnesses. Specifically, I want to talk about the different types of bipolar disorder, and I want to debunk some common myths about bipolar disorder. So, bipolar disorder is a complex brain disorder which affects mood, and it's primarily characterized by episodes of manic and depressive symptoms. So, mania being a period of emotional highs, and depression being a period of emotional lows. And I want to make it clear that, mania is very different than just being very happy, and depression is very different than just being very sad. They're both very complex mental states which can affect people in some very profound ways. Anyway, when we talk about bipolar disorder, we're actually talking about four different diagnoses. These are bipolar 1 disorder, bipolar 2 disorder, cyclothymic disorder, and other bipolar related disorders. And I'm going to talk about each one briefly. So the first is bipolar 1 disorder. So bipolar 1 disorder is characterized by severe episodes of mania and depression. And in order to be diagnosed with this condition, you need to experience a manic episode which lasts for at least 7 days, and a depressive episode which lasts for at least 2 weeks. Then the next kind is bipolar 2 disorder. Now, bipolar 2 disorder is similar to bipolar 1 disorder in that it's characterized by episodes of hypomania and depression, hypomania being a less severe form of mania, but still quite serious. But it's worth noting that although the manic episodes are often less severe in bipolar 2 disorder than they are in bipolar 1 disorder, the depressive episodes can be just as severe and sometimes more so. Then the third type of bipolar disorder is called cyclothymic disorder, and it's characterized by frequent episodes of hypomania and depression. The main difference between cyclothymic disorder and bipolar 1 and bipolar 2 disorder is that the manic and depressive episodes are much more frequent, but they don't last as long. But like I said, they're more frequent, and symptoms can last for a period of up to 2 years. So it really is a long-term illness. Now, a lot of people think that bipolar disorder is characterized by very frequent changes in mood and behavior, but bipolar 1 and bipolar 2 disorder actually aren't, but cyclothymic disorder is. And then finally, there's other bipolar related disorders. So when we talk about these disorders, we're talking about any disorder that's characterized by manic or depressive symptoms, but that does not fit into one of the three diagnoses that I just listed. So these are still bipolar disorders. They just don't match the symptoms that I've listed earlier. Now, unfortunately, there is a lot of stigma when it comes to mental illness, and this leads to a lot of misinformation. So I'd like to spend a few minutes addressing some common myths about bipolar disorder. And I've chosen 3 myths in particular that I'd like to talk about briefly. So the first myth is that bipolar disorder is a fake illness. But the fact is, bipolar disorder is a very complex brain disorder. We know that it is a real disorder that affects real people, and in some very profound ways. And there's more than enough scientific evidence to show that the brains of people with bipolar disorder are wired differently. The next myth is that bipolar disorder causes mood swings. But the fact is, bipolar disorder affects mood, energy, and activity levels. A mood swing is when you go from being very happy to very cranky in a very short period of time. But people with bipolar disorder are experiencing what's called mania and depression. These are periods of emotional highs and periods of emotional lows, which can last for weeks or even months at a time. And they're much more complicated than just being really happy or being really sad. They can, like I said, affect mood, energy, and activity levels and completely alter an individual's behavior and affect them in some very profound ways. So to say that bipolar disorder causes mood swings is a major oversimplification of the disorder. And then finally, the last myth is that people with bipolar disorder are crazy. But the fact is, bipolar disorder affects ordinary people. Now, it should go without saying that you shouldn't call anyone crazy, especially people with mental illness, because not only is it very disrespectful, it's a derogatory term that is often used to describe people with mental illness, which just adds to the stigma surrounding mental illness. It's also very inaccurate. Having a mental illness does not mean that you are crazy. Now, it is true that some people with bipolar disorder do experience symptoms of psychosis while they're having a manic episode. But it's important to note that not everyone with bipolar disorder experiences these symptoms, and for those who do, the symptoms usually go away once their manic episode ends, which it will eventually end. And of course, psychosis is not the same thing as being crazy. Like I said, that's a derogatory term that needs to go the way of the dinosaurs. So please do us all a favor and stop using that term. The fact is, people with bipolar disorder can live very productive and very meaningful lives with the right treatment and lifestyle changes. And as was pointed out to me by a good friend of mine who just so happens to have bipolar disorder, it is up to the affected individual to seek help and to accept their diagnosis. But once they do that, then they will be able to continue living a normal life. Anyway, I'm going to include a link in the description to an article which addresses some more myths about bipolar disorder, which I encourage everyone to take a look at. And on Thursday, I'll be releasing a video in which I talk more about what bipolar disorder is, what its characteristics are, and how it's managed. So be sure to subscribe if you want to see that video. And also be sure to follow Squeaky Wheel Productions on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And as always, if you enjoyed today's vlog and you want to see more videos like this one, then please support me on Patreon. Anyway, thanks for watching and see you on Thursday.